Good morning, internet. Side note, microphone, yay or nay? So ever since I uploaded the Twitter philosophy video, I've been asking myself how the rest of the internet is different from Twitter. I want to believe that the rest of the internet had some kind of quality that made it better than the cesspool that is Twitter. Now, before I drag myself into an existential crisis trying to define the phrase better and worse in objective terms, a thing that no philosopher has ever done in the history of anything, I realized something about the internet. It seems that the longer the content on average, the more informed and connected the platform. I find that this is because longer content requires a lot more dedication to make. Creators have to be dedicated to their craft, and subsequently the line between creator and viewer is clearer. The internet wants to boost up good people to lead them.
Yo, what's up? It's Asian Jane Paul here. I'm about to flex on y'all. Check out these new anime figures. I got these in Akihabara.
Dude, I thought I got rid of all the alter egos after I was possessed by a Darkiplier ripoff, and who did the satanic ritual to bring you into existence?
Dudes, I gotta be honest, I'm real tired of people saying that I'm just an alter ego on some other girl's channel.
Expecto Patrona, be gone, thought. Okay, so maybe the internet doesn't always want good people to be on the top, but they do most of the time. Otherwise, creators as big as Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, or Mr. Beast wouldn't donate as many millions of dollars to charity as they do every year. Compared to Twitter, which is pretty much just a free-for-all where anybody can go viral at any moment. Nuanced conversation isn't a thing that's really possible in 140 characters, or even in a 10-second TikTok for that matter. Now, I know many of you are probably asking me why I was searching for evidence for a concept I basically already know to be true, so I thought it was an opportunity to make another video in this Trash Course series. Get it? Get it? It's like Crash Course, but it's not a studio, it's like a 13-year-old's bedroom.
Roll intro!
I want to talk about how the internet separates into smaller internet groups rather than just being one internet, and why each of those groups simultaneously hates itself and the rest of the internet just as much. But first, why I tried so hard to come up with an answer to this question. Okay, in philosophy there are three main branches, not schools of thought, branches. These branches are metaphysics, epistemology, and value theory. Today's episode of Trash Course Philosophy will focus on the second one, epistemology, which is the philosophy of thinking about things. This, like so many other things, was invented by the Greeks.
The Greeks just had the idea of thinking about stuff.
Thinking about stuff in general is the bare minimum definition of philosophy in and of itself. But there are rules and there is a method. You may have heard of it. It's called the Socratic Method.
Oh, come on! Why does it have to be so complicated? Why can't we have everything in its simplest form so it's the easiest to understand? That's like saying, why is there complex life on the planet? Without complexity, there is no us in any sense of the word. I'm talking about unimportant things. Why are unimportant things so complex? Again, without complexity in the little things, there is no us. You think the universe cares about you? No, the universe can't talk. The universe doesn't think we're interesting. The universe is infinite and we are tiny, tiny, tiny. You're just an egotistical.
Sometimes I wonder why I share my past self on the internet. But anyway, the Socratic Method is basically just a microphone or a camera better than the one you have on your phone. It's what separates the regular viewer from the professional content creator, and it's what separates YouTube from Twitter. The method is an outline for how ideas should be traded. For example, pretend for a moment that we are all bounded by the laws of the method no matter what. Just for a sec, let's use the example of this dog. This is person A. Person A believes that this dog is the best dog in existence. No dog is better. She posts pretty regularly on all social media, so she wants to make an Instagram post saying that this dog is the best dog in the world. But remember, we're all bounded by the rules of the method, so she can't just say it. She needs to present an argument. Quick side note, an argument does not mean there's any anger going on whatsoever. An argument just means there's an idea, and if there's a counter argument, there is an opposing idea. That's literally it. Her argument has to consist of two things, premises and a conclusion. Her premises are that her dog is cute, she has never seen a cuter dog, so her conclusion is that her dog is the cutest. Now, let's take person B. Person B believes that PewDiePie is sacred and everything tangentially related to him is better than anything not at all related to him. Person B wants to leave an angry comment on Person A's Instagram post, but remember, because they're bound by the rules of the Socratic Method, Person B has to leave an argument, in this case a counter-argument. Her counter-argument is that the dog in question is not related to PewDiePie in any way. Edgar and Maya are both dogs that are related to Pewds, so this dog is not the best dog in existence. You're probably starting to realize how philosophers have FC'd this whole let's be civilized people who have grown up conversations even though all of our opinions are so different thing. The method is the baseline for all philosophical discussions, especially epistemology, and it's the reason I spent so much time thinking about the difference between Twitter and YouTube, specifically something philosopher W.K. Clifford proposed we add to it called Epistemic Responsibility. There's a 10-page long-winded explanation for this. I'll leave that in the description. It involves a transatlantic voyage on an unseaworthy ship and all this stuff. Instead, let me tell you a little fable about Susan and a new algorithm. The YouTube algorithm is famous for, sucking. But let's say there was a patch for all the problems in the algorithm, and Susan and all the Google overlords created one. But the actual computer scientists who developed the algorithm were skeptical, and they had some concerns about it. At first, Susan worries about the algorithms too. She doesn't think the new patch will be good, and half the simulations they run have thousands of channels being deleted and thousands of creators losing their livelihoods just like that. Side note, can we replace the Karen meme with Susan? Like, everything else stays the same. It's just the name. Let's just call it the Susan meme from now on. Anyway, at first Susan doesn't think the algorithm will work, but because it will be expensive to rework the algorithm, and the YouTube community is already kind of giving her a lot of flack for not fixing the algorithm quick enough, she starts to convince herself that the algorithm is safe. She does this by essentially lying to herself in the days leading up to the patch. Days before the patch, she is more than confident in this new algorithm. On the day the patch is released, thousands of creators lose their channels, everything is ruined, everything sucks, everybody moves to Twitch and Mixer and whatever the fuck. Who's to blame for this? Susan, of course, right? Any non-psychopath can tell that. She's the CEO, she knew about the dangers, she could have called it off at any moment. Now, for a moment, imagine the algorithm actually did work. Less unreasonable demonetization, the whole world is happy. Epistemic Responsibility says that Susan is still to blame in this situation. In the second scenario, Susan's crime is believing the algorithm will work despite the evidence to the contrary. In this example, she had complete confidence in the algorithm despite the evidence. It had a pretty good chance at causing disasters at that. Susan's crime is not upholding her epistemic responsibility, her responsibility to only hold beliefs that are based on evidence. This is also a great argument if you're an atheist looking to prove that believing in religions does actually have negative effects on the world. Millions of people dying in holy wars and human sacrifice and cults that I talked about in the last video aside for a moment. This is only one branch of epistemology, but I would argue that it is the most important, or at least one of the most important. Oh right, Socratic Method. Okay, so epistemology is the philosophy of belief. Epistemic responsibility is a principle about having evidence-based beliefs. The evidence is what philosophical premises are made of. Opposers to this theory, like Blaise Pascal, have been largely discredited, and philosophy as we know it cannot function without arguments based on evidence. Therefore, epistemic responsibility is one of the most important philosophical concepts. By the way, that Pascal guy that I mentioned is what's known as a pragmatist. Basically, he believed that your beliefs shouldn't be based on whether they're true, but whether they serve you, whether they are practical, pragmatic, as it were. His argument for God is the most famous one, where he said that even though the odds of God's existence are so low, because the benefits of believing in him have such great rewards and the punishments for not have such terrible punishments, you should believe in him anyway. I could spend hours punching holes in pragmatic logic, but if you really want to spend real effort and actual time reading about this stuff, of course, links are in my pants. Finally, I want to spend some time talking about the nature of philosophies as opposed to arguments, as well as something I've been calling my conflict theory of purpose perspective. You ever heard of FMA? F equals ma, Isaac Newton's big thing about forces? If you have, you know it always uses the same units. A 1 Newton force accelerates a 1 kilogram mass at 1 meter per second squared. Same for 5 newtons at 5 kilograms at 5 meters per second squared, or 500 or a million. The equation always makes sense no matter what numbers you plug in. Philosophy has to work that way too, or at least good philosophies do. A working philosophy applies no matter how many people have that idea or whatever your situation is. Epistemic responsibility applies if you have one irrational belief or if you've built up an entire belief system based on lies. It will still be immoral no matter what. An argument, however, is an application of philosophy. There are arguments for the identity of a person being the same as long as they have the same brain, but oftentimes they use colloquialisms to ignore the fact that we actually lose 190 brain cells every single goddamn day. It instead means roughly the same brain, same memories, same experiences, same likes, same dislikes, same things that define a brain. Same things that define a brain in the logical, not technical senses, because arguments require colloquialisms to function. A colloquialism is like an untrue or an unambiguous thing that we all agree to be true for the sake of simplicity, by the way. We often say that we're nauseous, but that actually technically means we are a thing that will make other people nauseous. The correct word is nauseated, but like, come on, who the fuck cares? Me, but like, who else the fuck cares? Now, to close off, I want to talk about a little theory of mine about how conflicts are created, especially between living things. Now, as I continue to read about Aristotle, the idea of virtues or excellence comes up 1 or 200 times a minute. It got me thinking a little bit about these basic virtues. He gave the example of a knife. The knife's virtue, its defining feature, is the blade. You can have a knife with a different kind of handle meant to be held by different kinds of people, or have a different feeling when it's being gripped, but not a different blade meant to do anything other than cut. If you do that, you have taken away the virtue of the knife. Aristotle says the virtue of man is in our minds. The knife is the best thing for cutting, and the human is the best thing for thinking. Now, I started being a little bit skeptical here because that would inherently make smarter people more human and dumber people less human, and that just kind of doesn't compute. I started thinking about how conflicts are created because the virtue of various things. For example, let's imagine YouTube can only afford to make one more movie play button, but Mr. Beast and Dan TDM both hit 50 million at the same time. Jimmy thinks the play button's purpose is to be given to him to acknowledge his accomplishments, but Dan thinks the play button should be given to him instead and acknowledge his accomplishments. Boom! We got a conflict. I theorize that conflict is caused when a virtue of something or someone is different based on perspective. This is also how enemies are created, because no matter how nice you are to a person after they have made you their enemy, it's hard to stop thinking of them as an enemy because you think their purpose is to annoy you or oppose you in some way, and nobody thinks that's their purpose in life. Most of the time. I like to think most of the time. Look, I like my faith in humanity, and I know it's probably misguided, but I like having faith in humanity. Then again, humanity can be the worst thing to have ever happened sometimes. I tried surfing the web to see if somebody has already come up with this because it seems like common sense to me. Then again, I also think the school of nihilism is common sense, and that was invented less than 200 years ago. I only found something about like author intent in books and completely unrelated stuff. If anybody knows of like a conflict theory of purpose perspective already existing, let me know in the comments. Oh shit, I'm pointing down, but I can't see my pants because the description is my pants. Leave some comments in my shoes for me. And hey, maybe give this video a like and sub to this channel if you want to see more content like this. But more importantly, stay curious, and until next time, this is PDB Ash, signing off.